Welcome to the Courageous Entrepreneur Show. This is the show that shares information and inspiration to help you break free from self-doubt, limiting beliefs, and disempowering patterns so you can stand out when you hate standing out, sell your services even though you hate selling, and create the thriving, successful business you dream of and deserve. I'm your host, Winnie Anderson. The show features interviews with entrepreneurs who've overcome amazing challenges to create success on their terms and experts who share insight and practical information to help you move forward with courage, confidence, and clarity. The show is available in both video and audio formats on a variety of platforms. You can get the show notes, links to resources mentioned, including a worksheet to help you reflect on and apply the ideas shared when you go to my website at winnieanderson.com. If you like what you hear, I hope you'll share the show with others, and I hope you'll decide to become a fan at my website at winnieanderson.com/fans. When you do, you'll get episodes delivered right to your inbox along with information, tips, and resources to help you, the introverted, mission-driven entrepreneur, consistently move forward to reach your biggest goals. You know, as I was editing this episode, a quote popped into my head from that famous philosopher Anonymous, and it's, "All who wander are not lost." The reason that popped into my head is that this week's guest, Randrick Chance, has been on quite a journey to arrive at the point where he is today. His story is a great inspiration, and he shares some excellent tips and strategies to help you recognize that while you might wander at times, you're not really lost either. Randrick, who goes by the name Chance, is a U.S. citizen by way of the Caribbean. He is a Navy veteran who won many awards during his tenure in the service. And after a spiritual awakening, he decided to leave the Navy and transition to the nonprofit sector and a career in humanitarian relief. He traveled more than he did when he was in the Navy. Chance now divides his time among his duties as pastor to 2 churches and his work as an implementation strategist. He works with entrepreneurs to monetize their skills, including helping them publish their platform building books. Listen in as Chance shares why he says success is predictable and how to make it happen for you, why failure is also predictable and how you can avoid that as well, the number one thing that he says will completely sabotage your success, and he gives insight on the 8 strategic actions that all entrepreneurs need to take. As always, listen all the way to the end where I'll share your cocktail exercise and action step for this episode. All right, Chance, so thanks for being with me today. I'm excited to have you here and have you share this information.
Thanks for having me. It's a privilege.
Awesome. So let's just dive right in. Tell us a little bit about your journey. I'm always fascinated by what led anyone to decide to join the military, because I had thought about joining the military as a young person myself. So tell me what led you to do it.
Okay, well, for me, it was a little bit of a combination of many things. I came to this country, as most people know. I'm an immigrant. I came from a small Caribbean island called St. Vincent. Very beautiful. You got to check it out sometime.
It is beautiful.
But when I came here, like most people, education was the biggest thing. So I was told that it's going to cost a lot of money to do the program I wanted to do. So that didn't really rest well with me paying back these massive debts. So a Navy recruiter contacted me, and all he had to say was, "Hey, military will pay for all your schooling," and that sold me. So that's primarily why I went into the Navy. Plus, of course, it's also the fastest way for one to become a U.S. citizen as well. So that helped me out tremendously. So in 3 years, I became a U.S. citizen. But that set me on my path to where I am. The military, to me, gave me the foundation, the knowledge, the skills that I needed to continue to pursue different career endeavors. So I joined primarily for that reason. And up to today, praise God, I have 0 student loans. So it's a blessing.
Yes, it is a blessing. Of course, back when in the day when I went to school,
Yeah.
the size of the student loan was, microscopic in comparison to what it is today. Of course, it felt big at the time, but it
Mhm.
still was nowhere near the possible debt that somebody
That's
could
true.
incur today. And I
That's
think that opportunity of learning, right? There are so many great opportunities to learn through service, through both the skills that you learn on that job, right? As well as this opportunity for continued study once you're outside of the service as well through the GI Bill and those sort of benefits. It really is amazing when you
it
think
is.
about the opportunity that you're given. So that's fantastic. I'm so happy to hear that. I had actually considered joining the Navy too, so that's awesome.
All right, go Navy.
That's right. So let's talk a little bit about when you left the Navy. Again, I'm always interested in hearing about people's journey and how they transition from the service. I used to be a recruiter in corporate life, and one of the areas that I focused on targeting were veterans, because to me it was like shooting fish in a barrel. You had all these people who had this fantastic leadership experience and leadership
Yes.
training. Why would you not pursue hiring vets if you possibly could? But I know not everybody has a smooth transition. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, for me, it's not that I didn't want to stay in the military, but I had what, I refer to as this spiritual reawakening, a spiritual transformation experience.
Okay.
And so at that junction in my life, I just felt like I needed to serve in a different capacity, on a more intrinsic kind of a level. So I was doing very well. I got quick promotions and the whole 9 yards, being in the military. So the military was good for me. And so even to this day, I say, had it not been for that, really, honestly, I would have stayed. I would have done all 20, years, because, so that's the reason I wanted to get out, to find something more, more in line with the new person pretty much that I had become.
Okay.
And so the nonprofit world at that time seemed to be the best option. But here's the thing, it was not easy. You're right. Transitioning is not always easy for most veterans. Matter of fact, I do have a lot of friends who would like to transition, but they're so afraid, because it's like, for one, the security, you have all your medical, dental, everything taken care of for you, navigating that on the outside. Even though they give you a class called TAP, Transition Assistant Program, to me it's still not sufficient, So that's one of the challenges. I think they need to start probably recruiting military veterans before they transition. I think that would probably help to make a much smoother transition. So I tried 1 or 2 jobs, and honestly, it did not work. I was missing the military camaraderie. I don't even count them as jobs, so I don't even list them. So I did try, several big name companies out there that hire veterans. And all I would do, I think I did 2 jobs when I got out, and I just went to the orientation, and I couldn't stay. Both of them, And so I'm like, listen, this is not for me, you know what I mean? Because there was no sense of vision and purpose. People were there just to get a job, get a paycheck. And again, being fresh, brand new, out of the military, I was like, old school, gung-ho type of a person. So it didn't resonate. Yeah. So I went to take a training course out in California for a ministry. And then I got into nonprofit work.
Okay. Yeah, I think that what you share there is really powerful, that being in any organization that has a very clear vision, that has a culture of incredible teamwork, that we're really in this together and every one of us supports the other person, has their back, if you will. That's to right. Then leave that organization and be out on your own, and you're still looking for that, because there's such a tremendous attachment, I think, from the heart for that kind of environment, if you're the right person in the right organization. Sure. And it is so obvious when that kind of culture is missing, that I can appreciate that. I was really privileged to work for some great organizations. Not that they didn't have their own issues and have dysfunction. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Every big organization does, right? But when I left there, it was like they had ruined me for other places, because you think
That's right.
This is how everybody does it, right?
Yeah.
And it's not how
No.
everybody does it.
No.
It really is not. It's very hard to find other organizations that are built with that kind of culture. You're
That's
very
true.
right.
You are right. I did find one though. However, I did find one in the nonprofit world. So I did that for 7 years. Actually, I served in the military for 7 years, 7 months exactly. And then when I got out, I found this nonprofit, and I did find that type of camaraderie there. They had
Right.
purpose. We would do a lot of humanitarian work right here in the U.S. I've traveled to now over 26 different countries. I actually did more traveling with that organization than with the
That's
Navy.
incredible.
Yeah.
So now, was that organization, was it a local community-based nonprofit, or was it an arm of a big national or international nonprofit?
Actually, yeah, it's global. Actually, it's
Okay.
an international organization. The headquarters was in Huntsville, Alabama, where my wife went to university there on a
Okay.
campus, HBCU, Oakwood University. So I became the outreach coordinator there, the fundraising director, and the project manager. Was wearing multiple hats. But the type of work that they were doing, remember, I got out for a more intrinsic type of service.
Right.
So that's really what got me. Like, we would serve underserved populations, low-income communities. And then in the summertime, what we do is we would go overseas, primarily in Africa, like Botswana, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Madagascar, Mozambique. So we would go overseas and we would do a lot of humanitarian type work for about sometimes 6 to 8 weeks. And so that filled me up. I felt so fulfilled doing that. It never felt like work for 7 straight years. It never felt like I was working at all.
That's fantastic. So now, what led you to go out on your own as an entrepreneur? Was that something that had always been, a little seed growing, or did you find yourself have a new awakening and feel called to serve the world in that way?
Well, a combination of. In the military, I was into supply and logistics, which is a lot of business stuff. So naturally, my undergrad degree, I had a major in business and a minor in management. And so that kind of was already there. But how I really got into being entrepreneurial was with the nonprofit. Of course, the organization itself had the money to do what we needed to do. So I fell so in love with that. In 2012, when I transitioned again, my wife and I moved to Texas. We didn't have any kids at all.
Okay.
And so we moved to Texas. And so I got into actual pastoring. And so right now, I'm pastoring 2 churches still. But that love for that nonprofit was so deep in my heart, but then I didn't have the money to do that work.
Right.
And so this is something that many people wrestle with. And that's why I'm a big proponent for entrepreneurship, because I'm like, listen, even though you're providing services for people, they might be receiving it for free, but it does cost money. Somebody has to do that. So I had a guy who was in my church, and he was from Kenya. And so I was sharing with him my journeys to Africa. He said, we need to go. I said, yeah, we need to go. Where am I getting the money?
Somebody's got to pay. That's exactly right.
So then, my mind is like, hey, why don't you, monetize your skills? You used to teach people on the side, like how to write books and publish books and so forth. So that's what I would do. I would just start, teaching people different things and, working the internet, trying to learn a little bit of how to make money online. And that would give me money to be able to do some of this humanitarian work that I was passionate about.
Okay. Yeah. I think that is a really great point, Chance, because so many people that I know who have some big mission on their heart, who really want to make a giant impact in the world, wrestle with this issue around money and tell themselves some story that money is bad. They misquote the Bible, that money is the root of all evil, and no, that is not the actual quote. It is the love of money is the root of all evil, right? So money is how the world works, and it's how we all do our work as well. So do you have any advice for people who have some kind of big calling, a big impact that they want to make? I think that the term now is social entrepreneur, right? How does somebody manage to balance this issue of it takes money to make the world go round, including to perform your service, with this issue of, but I'm bringing gifts to the world. I want to make a social impact. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I think two ways. One is figuring out what's your big why. What is your big why? What do you really, even identifying exactly what is this impact? Sometimes even that word gets thrown around. I want to make an impact. So what does that look like? Right. So you first got to identify what the impact you really want to make. And then if there's a financial number to it, because generally there might be, the bigger the impact, definitely you're going to need resources. But with it does not always have to be your resources. So for example, this is one of the things that I keep in my mind as well, because like actually this year, early in January, we went to Ghana, and that was 6 figures. There's no way that I don't know is going to cover. I'm not the only one going to cover that. So I say this: if you want to make an impact and you have the vision for it, but you don't have the resources, you simply team up with somebody who has the resources, because there are people with resources and they don't have the vision for making that type of impact. So it's like a marriage. And that's what most nonprofits are technically, isn't it? When you think of it, most nonprofits have a vision for social good, but they don't have resources. And so they depend upon people's financial contribution. Well, the people with the financial contribution don't generally have time to do that type of work, but they resonate with it, they sympathize with it, and it is something that they value, so they will give their resources. So that's one way that I think people can be able to do it. But we have to make our peace with money, because you're right, that's one of the biggest hang-up. Actually, it was my biggest hang-up as well, until I read Daniel Lapin, and I have a book here called Rich God, Poor God. Very, very, very powerful book. But those help to also liberate me from some of those constructs as well, especially being in the spiritual space.
Yeah, I think those are all really great points. And I think we all have some kind of money story. Is it a productive story, or is it a destructive story, or something that holds us back? And I think that's something that does require us to stand and stare in the mirror and figure that out. I think those are really great points about the issues with other people who have resources, but who don't have, or they're unable to do that work that you're called to do. So yeah, there are plenty of ways that you can look at getting financing. Let's dive into this area of that you talk about in your book, of strategic secrets. You talk about in that book 39 strategies. And when I read your book, I thought of it almost in comparison to the success principles, that it's something that you can read over and over again, that you can pick one particular strategy to really focus on, just like success principles. It's something I turn back to time and again when I feel like I need a tune-up. So let's look at, I'm going to jump around a little bit, right, and pick out some of these ones that I think want to be amplified particularly. So there's one that you call success is predictable. And I know that sometimes we equate predictable with fast. They're not the same thing, are they? So can you talk about this concept that success is predictable? And, I'm wondering if there aren't some people doubting that right now.
Yeah, well, if we all will be honest with ourselves, because it takes to accept that as a truth, which again, you're right. We wrote the book so that it can be fast. It's not, the chapters are not long, like 2, maybe 3 pages maximum, so you can get the impact. But success is predictable because it really follows the law of cause and effect relationships. So if I want to go, and I grew up gardening just for this purpose, I would tell anybody, especially if you want to get into entrepreneurship, start a garden, because that is what teaches you about these success principles, in my opinion. Yeah. Every time I plant radish, I'm going to get radish, right? Provided, of course, there are other things that can hamper your yield. But generally speaking, if you don't plant anything, you're not going to get anything, right? And if you don't plant when they said to plant, then you won't get anything. But if you abide by the laws of agriculture, guess what's going to happen? You're going to get a crop every single time. I have never planted and not gotten stuff. There are times when I've lost the crop. There are times when I go on vacation, I abandon my stuff, and so therefore the weeds grow in. All of those are lessons. So success is predictable because all you have to do is observe all the people who are successful and notice the commonality among them all. Mm-hmm. If you and I really would do those things in time, because you're right, everybody's different. Everybody implements differently. Everybody takes action differently. But if we consistently follow things that are proven to give outcomes, we will get the results at some point. And so that's why success is predictable. So we don't have to me, that eliminates competition, really. I don't really have to compete with you, nor do you have to compete with me, because we both follow success principles for our own outcome in what we want to pursue as success. I'm not necessarily pursuing the same thing as you are. We might be similar, but you have a bent, I have a certain bent. And so therefore, we don't need to compete with one another.
Yeah, that's really great. I love that analogy of gardening. I'm a gardener myself, and certainly you see that, right? You see that. I think I had a little post a few weeks ago that the rose bush does not sit there and look at the tulips and go, I'm just not as good as these tulips. I'm not as good.
I should have been a tulip. Right?
I should have been a tulip. Right. Exactly. Yeah. But we do that to ourselves too, don't we? And then we plant things that have that's why there are these hardiness zones, right? That tell you that the likelihood of this growing in this spot is pretty good. Maybe this plant, you might be, it might not be too likely to work out for you. Not saying it won't, but other models have not worked out here. So yeah, I think that really is a great piece of advice. I think it's a great piece of advice in general to start a garden because it teaches you so much about nurturing and patience.
Exactly. And not to leave the point real quick, really. So I want to belabor just one little bit more. Also, for example, you have the radish and beets, they grow very fast. So that can mean for that particular crop, the success principle is simple. But then when you grow in carrots and winter squash, which I'm growing right now, they take a longer time. Mm-hmm. And so that's why we shouldn't compare ourselves, because you might be trying to attain something. It takes you a couple months to a couple of years, maybe a year or two. But because my vision might be, maybe a larger thing or whatever, it's going to take me longer. But I'm looking, and that's what we got to be careful with social media, because we see our friends getting the big house and doing all these different things. And people measure up themselves with that. Everybody's graduated. I should have this degree too because they have theirs. And I'm like, listen, they're on a different journey. And their vision long-term is different than yours. So you cannot compare yourself with them. You two are successful where you are for your vision.
Yeah. That's a really great point. I work with a lot of people who happen to be parents. Right. And so their children are at various points in the growth phase as well. And, some kids are out of the house and they've got their own successful careers, which is just a different phase of parenting. But some kids require more hands-on support, right? They're still living in your house. They can't drive yet. They still have all these needs that need to be met. And so many parents I see who are entrepreneurs beat themselves up because I should be doing this. It's like we resent our kids and our family for the involvement that they require. But that's why we're doing our work, is so we have that time. So I think that's also an issue as well, recognizing that we're trying to do often multiple full-time jobs. Right? We're parents, we're married, right? You and I are both married. So being a spouse is a full-time job. Then we're entrepreneurs. That's a full-time job. Making sure your priorities are being managed at the same time and recognizing what, sometimes it's the family that is number one in importance. And sometimes the business is going to require that attention at that time too.
Exactly. You want it.
So let's talk about chapter 7 in your book, which is failure is also predictable, which,
Uh-huh.
that's scary enough. And I was just exchanging messages with someone in my coaching group today around this fear of success, fear of failure, and all this. So that failure is predictable can also hold people back. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Right. And so in order to identify success and failure, we must have a definition for both of them.
Excellent.
Right?
Yeah.
Because we can define failure one way, but it also can be a blessing as well. So, but let's just go with the general flow. So if success is predictable, meaning that success is just a realization of certain success principles applied consistently over a period of time. Therefore, if I do X, Y, and Z and so forth, then I should be able to get a certain outcome. So the reverse can also be true. If I know that there are certain principles for success and I don't do them, I'm not going to get the success. If I don't water my garden, I can plant the seed, but if I don't water it, if I don't tend to it, guess what's going to happen? Because I'm not following the laws of successful gardening, for example. So yeah, like relationships, if you have a relationship, it might be great. It might be the best person in the world, right? But if you don't tend to that relationship, inevitably, it's going to go sour. Yeah. So everything in life demands that you work with the principles to keep that thing going or to make it a success. So that's really what it's all about. So to me, again, failure is predictable because if one refuses to implement or to do the things that are required to have successful outcomes, then success will evade them. Right. But I must give a caveat. And that is this. If an individual, man or woman, boy or girl, whomever, is on their journey to success and they have a failure, I don't count that as failure. Delays, setbacks are not failures. They can be the actual stepping stone into the thing that you want to get. So what I'm trying to say is the difference really is the person who just refuses to do what is required. I want a six-pack abs. I don't want to exercise. You know what I mean? I want to be the healthiest person on the planet, but I want to eat anyhow. That is not going to give you success. That's what we're talking about. So that's going to be a recipe for failure every time. However, when a person is trying to figure it out, trying to get it right, that person is not experiencing failure. That person, like Edison and others, they're just discovering what doesn't work. But the point is that you keep going. And here's the beautiful thing. Even in that case, failure might be a blessing because sometimes if you succeed in the wrong thing, nature has this way of trying to get you in the right direction. So, because some people can confuse their calling. If you are successful in an area that is not for you, guess what? You might be doing that thing and miss your entire calling because you were successful in it. So sometimes you have to get some failures, delays, and setbacks to put you on the right course.
Yeah, I think that's great. When the example I like to use is none of us stopped learning how to walk because we fell on our butts, right? Yeah. We just kept pulling ourselves up and taking another step and moving forward. But somehow through the growth process, we start to believe that we should be perfect somehow and that everything should be lightning fast. And I think part of it is this issue that you raised about comparisons and how we compare ourselves to others and say, I should have the same thing or I should be moving as fast as they are. Of course, we're not watching them fall, right? We're only seeing, especially on social media, you're not seeing the bloopers. Somebody used that analogy. You're not seeing the blooper reel. You're seeing their highlight reel and attaching some story to that as well, right? That, oh, those people have it so easy. And it's really feeds off of that story that we then tell ourselves, which is some made up, manufactured kind of thought process entirely. And because we're not seeing the bumps and bruises along the way. One of the examples, I was just talking about this person last week. One of my favorite examples of failure, not actually being failure, is, I have a couple actually, but one of my favorites is William Hung. William Hung, the legendary American Idol reject, right?
Come on now.
Who then goes on, he was humiliated, right, on national TV and became this media sensation because of a failure, and got a recording contract, got appeared in a movie, was on television, had all of these great opportunities that never would have come his way had he not failed at that, and failed in a big way, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we tell ourselves these stories. I should be so lucky that I fail on national TV and get all those opportunities.
There you go. There you go.
It's about telling yourself a story that I think is connected with that failure.
Yeah. But be concerned when you are not taking the action.
The action.
So you can fail. So in other words, whether it's inertia or whatever the case may be, but the reality, what we're trying to say, why fail is predictable, because how can one achieve success when one is not doing what produces successful outcomes? Even trials is a form of, you try different things in order to get certain things. So that itself, that's why I don't label that as failure. Like, we need a different word for that. A person is trying their best, doing their part. Like, they are working towards being successful. So how should we call it failure? To me, failure is like, I'm not doing what is required. Like I said, I just want to stay here, watch TV, eat potatoes and chips, and get the six-pack abs. That to me is failure, right? That's how I see that. But I don't see anybody who's trying their best, putting it out, doing what is required, but it's being delayed or life is teaching them along the way. That to me is not failure at all.
Yeah, I agree with you. And so if the title of chapter 7 wasn't scary, chapter 8 is even scarier. And that one is the number one thing that will completely sabotage your success. So let's talk a little bit about this, because I know I've done things that have, be honest, I've done things that have hurt my success, that have held me back. I've self-sabotaged before. So let's talk about this issue of self-sabotage. It does sound ridiculous, to be honest with you, but it's a reality that
it's a reality.
This, right? So let's talk about what is it and how can we get ourselves out of it?
Well, you notice how they kind of flow together, right? Success is predictable, fail is predictable, and here are some things on how we self-sabotage. So they're all just trying to help you to take some kind of movement. So here's the thing. We kind of have, alluded to it earlier, right? So first we must admit, like you say, so we give some examples, self-sabotage. I want to get A's in school, for example, for students, right? And you're not studying. You're sabotaging the A's that you're trying to get, because that's the outcome. That's the success you seek, right? So, or you want to save money for the down payment of a house, but every paycheck you get, you spend everything and then some. That is sabotage, right? Again, relationships, we take it. How many people have had a wonderful man or woman in their life, but then they end up doing something foolish, maybe cheating on that partner, or just some other ridiculous thing that they did, and the person left them. Not because it was you, they wanted you, they wish they could, but you sabotaged the relationship. And so those are the kind of stuff that we're talking about. So success has sabotage. I don't want to sabotage my success. If you're into sales and you don't go out and make calls or go out and sell things, that is success sabotage. So, but here is the number one, because those are examples, right? The number one thing, Winnie, that will absolutely sabotage anybody's success is this: making excuses. Making excuses. Dr. Washington Carver says 99% of all failures is because of excuses. And that is so true, because when you make excuse, it steals you of your own power. Making excuses rob you of the responsibility for your own success. Making excuses puts the blame on others, because if you're not blaming yourself, technically you're blaming someone else or something else. And so excuses causes you to even be delusional, meaning that because you're not dealing with reality. I'm doing everything to tear down my own house, and yet I'm not taking responsibility. It's this reason, it's that reason, and this and that. So making excuses, I believe, to me, truly is the number one reason for sabotaging success, and we must avoid it at all costs.
Yeah, I think that is another great point, Chance. And, it's so tied up with the story that we're telling ourselves. the fear of taking action, and we then come up with, yes, some excuse or reason why something's not happening. But, I have people who tell me, well, I don't have time to do that. Or well, who's in charge of your calendar?
There you go.
You are, right? And people will often say, well, but I have responsibilities. Okay, well, they're called priorities, and then you got to manage that, right? So
who does not have responsibility? We all do.
Yeah, exactly. And again, who's in charge of you, right? So we have to, I think that's another problem that nice people, right? Often spiritual people who consider themselves spiritually motivated or social entrepreneurs often think of themselves as, well, I'm a nice person, so I'm just going to say yes to every opportunity or to every person who asks for my help. And that's a big recipe for then not getting anything done, isn't it?
That's right.
Yeah.
That is so true. I've had some of those rabbit trails.
We all have, right? We all have. And that's
so
part
true.
of this issue of wrestling with, am I going to really be on purpose and on mission, or am I just going to let people distract me and go off on these side roads?
Yeah.
So let's talk about the courageous actions that we entrepreneurs need to take. And, we've been alluding to so many of them now, but let's get a little bit more specific. So there are 8 of them, and we're going to run through each one of them. And I'd like to get your input on these if I can. So first up, of course, is marketing, because you don't have a business if you're not going to market it and do something to attract clients, right? So we all want to get our message out in a very powerful way so we reach more people. There's so many ways to do that, right? What do you think is really the best strategy for someone to get their message out in a powerful way?
Yeah, and I like the way you have them listed. Can you just list them out first, and then we get back to dealing with the marketing? Because I want to give an illustration.
Yes, absolutely. So there's marketing, selling, fulfilling, creating, managing, growing, leading, and last but by no means least is living, because that's really why we're doing this, right? So, and if we put all of our effort in the business end and we're not living, right, what are we doing here? So I think that the first the first courageous action really is getting your message out there to begin with. So what do you think is a great way to do that?
I'm in agreement with you, because the reason I wanted to put the list is because I see it like a triangle, right?
Yeah.
So on the bottom 2 edges here will be marketing and selling. That's how you have them there. And then the last one at the apex is the final one, living. Everything else strands, around those. Right. So because marketing and selling has to support everything else. And I think as creatives, especially courageous entrepreneurs, introverted entrepreneurs, rather, we love the creation side. We will create all day long, but nobody knows about our stuff.
Right.
So marketing, the best way, again, I think part of it is the story too. So I think let's start there. The best way to start marketing is here, where you actually believe in your product and you say, listen, I have something to share. And so there's no shame in promoting my stuff. I think sometimes we feel, I know as an introverted entrepreneur myself, sometimes you feel like, oh man, you might come across this way, or, I'm promoting too much or whatever. But the reality is, if you believe in your thing, your product, your service, your program, whatever it is, if you believe that it's going to help you, then you must let people know about it. Yeah. You must let people know about it. So the first thing is you, the person, the individual, you have to be the one promoting primarily, in the sense of, sharing it as often as you can, bring it up in conversations wherever you go, like even here. So, I'm trying to also get a message out here, right? Right. Even though it might not be related here, but that's one of the ways, because I want people to know that we are all in some way, shape, leaving money on the table. So advertising is the key, because that's what you say. People must know about your stuff so you can get to the next step, which is selling. So think of that as the number one. To me, like you said, I think it's one of the pillars in all of selling. You must be able to market to attract them so you can do the selling next. Yeah. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, amen. So, and then that does feed right into selling. You know, Peter Drucker, the famous management consultant long ago, said that marketing should make sales superfluous, meaning that you're doing such a great job of getting your message out that you're bringing those people who are ready, right? But we get so twisted up around this whole idea of sales and selling. So we tell ourselves so many stories that are connected with this. And you alluded to that, right? That, oh, people will judge me, or they'll think I'm a bad person. But and that can then lead us to not getting clients, to not making the impact that we want to make. Why do you think service professionals struggle with this? And what's your best tip for getting past it and dealing with sales?
Because again, it goes back to, again, as you said, the message, some of the belief systems we have. But if we be honest, again, technically we are lying to ourselves that we don't like selling. Because when I write this book, Strategic Secret, am I not selling the reader on the concepts and ideas in this? Yes. So it's easy for us to say it in our creation, but because it's like, oh, it's just coming out of me. But when it comes to now, hey, telling that other person you need this thing, we feel like we are doing an injustice. So I think part of it is the conditioning and also learning the basic mechanics, because you are selling it also, like everything else, there's a science behind it. So there are success principles to selling. So if one would learn the basics of selling, sharing, finding out what people need and giving it to them. So my approach, here's one of the, number one thing, I would say this. I have adopted the way of selling in this fashion, results-based. So to me, especially in service, I find that to have been now a winning thing. If I can get you results, because even this morning before we got on, I was on another call, and the gentleman was asking me at the end about that too, because he's like, we both him and I were supposed to talk with this client, and he's like, how are we going to be able to, pitch them the price? And I said, listen, if they want the results, they pay for it. If they don't want the results, they don't pay for it. And if we don't get a result, we don't get paid. So we have skin in the game. So everybody's different. I'm just saying, you asked for a tip. So that's one of the tips I have found that is working for me right now, especially in service. I believe that if I render results to you, you're trying to lose weight, if I can help you lose weight, then pay me for it. And not only that, but if I get you extraordinary results, and guess what? I'm going to ask for an extraordinary paycheck. Makes sense? So to me, that's working. And it has reduced, Winnie, this kind of push kind of, thing on people. It's really, to me, it has become simple. So, one of the things I do primarily is I help people take their concept ideas and create products and then market them. So whether it's a book, a course, or a coaching program or something like that. So I help creatives to be able to pull those kind of things out of their head and create something of value for others and then market it. So I can get them those results consistently. And so therefore, I don't really get any pushback on price. Whatever I ask generally is what I get, because they know for certain that they're going to get the results when it comes to product creation. Now, on the marketing side, because like you said, most creators don't like to market, or they don't see marketing as a function. So that's sometimes I have them, hey, find somebody else to do it, because if you don't want to put in the money to get the marketing part together, then I'll teach you marketing, but I'm not going to do that part for you.
Right.
So there you go.
Yeah, that's really outstanding. So I think that what this really alludes to, part of it is what we tell ourselves, and those situations in the past when we have felt pressured, we believe we're going to be pressuring other people, or they're going to be seeing us as pressuring them. And for me, it means how important it is to talk to people in a way that, one, first of all, it's who you're talking to, right? Making sure that you're clearly talking to people who want a specific outcome and who have a specific problem. Because if I'm selling beef, I'm not going to advertise in a vegan magazine.
There you go.
I'm wasting my time. They don't, there's just no way that they're ever going to be interested in that. So I think it takes understanding the problem that you solve.
True.
And then talking in language that helps that person who has the problem understand that you have the solution. And yeah, you either want it or you don't.
There you go. And so there's no fight again. So that's why I'm like, there's no competition also in that aspect. Because I'm like, listen, and one of the things too, also in the fact that we felt pressured, one of the things too is we also might have felt let down that we've tried this thing before. And that's why some people are holding on to their pockets because they've been burned several times. Right. So while I know in marketing, you can't really guarantee certain things, but at the same time, that's why you're right. Listen, if I can get you to lose weight, as you know, taking that as example, everybody's into health. Right. If I can help you to do that, I know I've done it and I've helped a lot of people do it. So now I can speak with confidence. Of course, you have to do the work too, you know, the individual. Right. But what you're saying is, I know my system will get you that result if you will work the system. So now I can speak with more confidence and authority. And so that's what I have found truly, honestly. It really has been a game changer because, of course, you know, we've tried all these other things before. And like you said, I think I listened to one of your shows too. When it comes to introverted entrepreneurs, they're not willing to do certain things because some selling is, you know, is serious, guerrilla warfare, you know, guerrilla kind of marketing. And so we are all not, you know, comfortable with some of those. And so, but I just have found that, especially with service-based stuff, that's my approach. Yeah. Here's what I can do. I know I can get you the results, and here are the examples.
Right.
You want it or you don't want it. It's cool with me.
Right. And so I think that also speaks to acknowledging what you are not willing to do. And you know what? If you say, I'm not willing to speak, okay, well then don't speak. But there are, you know, this is really a form of speaking, right? So somebody who's uncomfortable being up on a stage or speaking at an event like a dinner or something like that, they can do this kind of speaking and be great. So it really does come down to pushing yourself out of your comfort zone a little bit, but also finding a way that feels good to you to get that message out. And yeah, it's a delicate balance, but exactly as you've alluded to so many times, Chance, if you do nothing, well, I got news for you. People aren't going to come to your door and say, hey, I heard there's a smarty in here.
Right.
You've got to somehow demonstrate that you are excellent at what you do because so many of us have been burnt. We need some kind of, I call them proof elements. We need certain proof elements that show me that you can do the things that you say that you're able to do.
And that's motivation to me because, again, it goes back to your big why. If you want to keep producing, if you want to keep doing your creative thing, you have to be able to finance it again. Because as you're saying, for example, even books, right? So somebody want to write books or whatnot, the book is going to cost you some money. So if you want to keep writing books, you better be able to create money because you got to pay for graphic design, pay for editing, pay for all of these things. So that's why it's a nice cycle. So in other words, I tell myself, if I want to keep doing this thing, I need to keep getting customers. You look at a doctor, right? A physician. If they don't have clients, guess what they cannot do? Practice. So even though they love their practice, I love being this, whatever profession you may call it, if you don't have a stream of customers and clients, you're not going to be doing that for long.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's another motivation to me in saying, listen, I owe it to my business, I owe it to myself to really market properly and also learn to sell properly. Or as you get into the later on, hire other people to do it.
Yeah, exactly, because that leads to the third item on the list, and that is fulfilling, which that is what we love to do, right? We love to do it, whatever that it is, whether you are a professional speaker or you are a doctor or you are a coach or consultant. It's that thing that we do that we love to do and can spend all day doing, but it can be, you know, we can get tied up in just doing that. And then, so we create these feast or famine cycles, right? So how do you manage to juggle service delivery, fulfilling, with all the other things that are necessary in a business?
And then you go back to prioritization, right? So you got to prioritize what contributes, depending on how you look at it, because everybody's business is different, right? So let's just say you are heavy on the income side. So whatever contributes to your bottom line, like the thing that feeds the bottom line the most, that 80-20 principle, right? We want to put the most effort and time and energies into what actually creates and sustains the business, right? So if fulfillment is that, hey, because you have to also look at retention with with your customers and clients. So you might have to up level on your fulfillment. So you might definitely want to put a lot in that. But once you get it going, now you don't have to put as much effort into that, because I found too, scaling up. Like at this point, I can still handle clients, many ways, for myself. And I like the one-on-one. So there are other aspects like design and those type of things. I let other people do that. But I like the interaction with the person and coaching them and meeting with them in person, because I feel like I can help inspire them to stay with it, and to take action.
Yeah.
But guess what's going to happen with it? As I'm doing now, part of the call I was on today is because I cannot scale up big time and do that. So going into the new year, that has to change now.
Yes.
But so that's what I'm saying. It just depends on your model. So do the best you can. But whatever you do, when it comes to outsourcing anything, make sure it's quality. And it doesn't have to be exactly how you'd be doing it, but make sure that if people associate with you, like one of the things people associate with me is outcomes. So every component of my stuff has to create outcome. So if it's going to be fulfillment, it's best be done. Like they can say, if you're going to get your product in this shape, it's going to be there in that shape or in this speed or whatever the case may be. So always please the customer, but you got to figure out what contributes to the bottom line or to the mission, depending on, some nonprofits, they're not so heavy on the bottom line. So their approach is about, if you run a charity too, their approach is, again, that deliverability. They are the ones that can do that well, and their volunteers are the ones that do that well.
Right. Well said. Okay, so next, as you've talked about this a little bit already, and that's creating. It's something that we love to do so much. And gurus talk about the need to create products and books and courses and other things to sell, right? To leverage our time. How do you budget time to create along with the time for managing and doing all these other things, the selling and the marketing? How do you manage to fit all that in?
Right, and not to beat a dead horse again, but yes, prioritization is one of the crucial things.
Right.
And one of it too is just knowing your genius, your thing. For me, I love the creation part actually more than all aspects of it, because the ideas just come and they keep coming and you wish you could implement them all. So for me is know when you are in the zone. When I say in the zone, I mean that time when you are most inspired. Do the most. I think in the military, they used to say strike while hot. So while the idea is hot, while the vision is there, like sometime I will wake up in the morning, something will be there, and I just get up and I start writing or I start doing whatever to try to bring that thing to life. So I would say find your peak zones. And it's different for everybody, because I know I believe in waking up early as well, but some people, it might be later on in the evening, and you might have to challenge that. I get great ideas, honestly, when I'm in the shower. So sometimes I take long, long showers. I'm not doing anything in there but just thinking, because that's when the ideas come. So I'm mulling it over in my mind like, why, if we did it this way, So it's just finding your peak zone. Another thing, though, I would say we need is that I think we need to know our bodies, because health is a very important aspect of creation. And the more healthy you are, I think, generally, now, get me wrong, don't get me wrong, everybody, I'm not trying to say we all got to be like, what I mean,
right,
slim and whatnot. But I'm just saying the general principle is the more healthier you are, is the quicker you can think, the quicker you can create. And it helps you to make better decisions also. So that way you're not doing everything or creating at the wrong time. So stuff like that. So that's what helps me. Try to stay in a peak shape as best as I can and create it only when I'm like super, super inspired. And when I have the fire behind me, that's when I try to do most of the creation.
That's great. That's great. So let's look at managing. Now, there are so many facets to managing a business, right, as it grows. Is there an area of business that you wish you had focused more on as you were building your business in terms of managing the overall business itself?
Yeah, and you have some things that strand together here when it comes to managing, leading, and so forth. So those might overlap. But yeah, I think onboarding and again marketing. I think because I didn't put as much priority in that in the beginning, because again, we want to create, And then, but I got the rude awakening where I had all this creation, primarily books and so forth. And I'm like, hold on, they're not going anywhere. So, so it reshaped the things. But what helped me was the fact that I'm like, okay, how am I able to develop these products so fast? Because I have a master's degree in project management. I get other people to do those aspects of bringing it to life. I just kind of get the shell, the vision and so forth in there, but other people bring the stuff to life. So the same thing when I, because I really didn't want to put the emphasis on marketing really and truly because it's not my big thing. But now it is because it's like those things support all the others. So I started out by saying, okay, who can I find to do the marketing? And that way you manage it just like you manage product development. And so I wish I had done that aspect earlier, is managing marketing.
Yeah, that's a really great tip, and allows you to stay in that genius zone at the same time. So yeah, I think that's really awesome. So as the business grows, we need to grow as people and as professionals. What's one area that you would like to grow in yourself?
Personally, and it ties to this leadership aspect, because I've been in the military and I've led mission enterprises overseas and branches of nonprofits overseas, and even, 2 churches right now. So the thing is, people assume that I'm strongest in leadership. But because of my nature, I get out when I need to, but the reality, it drives me crazy having to deal with a whole lot of people. And so even that's why I coach the way I coach, so that way I do the high price model so I can deal with less people, So the thing is, I want to grow more in that because I'm more of a manager than I am a natural leader.
Okay.
I can lead when it's necessary, but I don't really like it because I don't like dealing with obnoxious people and people who drive me crazy. So that's one of the things. And then because I can go into a, discouraged, depressed state, just dealing with people and all their problems. And another thing is because I'm intrinsically motivated, when I hear too many people's problems and I can't do anything about it, it gets me down. It gets me down. So I would rather manage than lead. But I know it's crucial if you want to be leading your business. You have to be able to be strong in that. So that's one area I want to grow more in as a leader.
Okay, great. Yeah, those are really great points as well. So let's narrow this focus of leadership a little bit, because I think that part of what we wrestle with is leading our customers, our clients, right, and leading our organization. But then there's also this concept of thought leadership, if you will, and being an authority in your particular field and area. So what do you think, what do you wish actually that you had done more of or could do more of to position yourself as a leader to, in your whole industry segment, if you will?
Well, one, I think, is not being ashamed of who you are and your gifts and talents. I think sometimes we downplay who we are so that we don't appear again as that leader.
Yeah.
But there are many things, for example, I mean, it's not just today I started writing books. I was writing books as soon as I got out of the military. And, but, I would keep them to myself. I would, I never kind of put them out there. Because for one, it's like, oh, it's just for my friends and family. But really, truly, I didn't want to be put in the spotlight. So even at times I still struggle with it because, there's sometimes my congregation, they don't really know of some of the other books I've published besides, spiritual themes kind of books. And so I think in that regards, I have some growth still to do. So there we go. We all growing and so forth. But if you want to be a thought leader, you have to own your genius. Don't make apologies for who you are and put it out there. Put your stuff out there, put your ideas out there, but don't try to be let me not say don't try to be in this way because everybody's different. For me, I don't want to be the guru of gurus. Like it doesn't attract me. Yeah. I want to influence and impact people, but I don't really have to be personally in the limelight. I really don't. But I do want to make an impact with people that I'm definitely helping Like we've done a whole lot of work in Africa and all this stuff. Ain't nobody know about it, but I know. And so I feel good about that. And so I don't have to be like, oh, he is the #1 humanitarian worker in the world. So if you need advice on humanitarian enterprise, go to him. That doesn't really excite me.
Yeah. I think that is an incredibly powerful point to make, that we don't all have to be Brendan Burchard, right? Or Tony Robbins or whoever is the guru of the moment, that we can be the leader to those people who we really are inspiring. Because you made a great point, Chance, and that's the guru to the gurus. You're not interested in teaching people at that level. You're interested in really impacting the people in the trenches, if you will, and making a difference there. So there are plenty of people who are the guru to the gurus, and they can all go over there. But you're going to help these people who are really making the difference right there at ground level, I think they would probably say in the military. Yeah.
Again, no competition. So there you go. I don't have the guy who wants to aspire to that. Now, you don't have to worry about me, because I'm not trying to aspire to that. You see what I'm saying? So like I said, competition is there, but to me, it's the way we describe it. To me, there's really no competition with it, because here's why. We both don't have necessarily the same outcomes that we are looking for. Right. And to me, it's easy to be in the success realm and even at the top. Why? Because as we mentioned here in the book throughout, most people don't take action. And the reality is, so that's why it's really a small group at the top who is achieving super. I have found that most people simply do not take action. So it is easy to be in a class all by yourself. Most people would not do what is required. It sounds negative, but it's reality. And that's why I changed my stuff. I used to say I'm a lifestyle coach. Now I say I'm an implementation strategist, because you're coaching all these people and they're not doing anything with the information and the knowledge. So I'm like, listen, I am going to help you now to implement. Like, you're going to get results. That's why I've shifted again also. Results, outcome, that's what we're about. If you don't want outcomes, don't waste my time, because I know my thing works. And so I'm not trying to just give you information. You might lose some customers and money that way, but that's what I'm saying. I want to work with people who want results.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that is, again, it's very powerful. It can be hurtful to admit.
It can be, yes.
But there are plenty of studies out there, though, that support what you say. It's not like you're just making this up. The majority of people, over 90% of people who buy books don't read them, who pay for courses, don't take them, don't finish them, don't apply them. And as a person who is I'm a certified teacher. I'm a former corporate trainer and training manager and director. And one of the things that used to frustrate me so much was, I worked for companies that really believed in training and spent millions and millions of dollars training people around the world and sending me all over the country to train those people. But they needed support in actually exactly what you're saying, implementing. The people who are really ready to implement, often they'll just do it. Right, because it's inside them and they're ready. But most people require more support to actually implement. And I'm so glad that you're calling yourself an implementation strategist, because that's a big part of my commitment too. I'm not interested in just talking to hear myself talk. I'm interested in actually seeing you make a difference in not just your life, in the life of the people that you're trying to touch.
That's right.
So but I think that it requires admitting that, what, I need help getting stuff done. I need help implementing this stuff. There's no shame in that. You're in the majority.
Not at all.
Yeah. I could go off on that for hours, but we won't. So, okay. So last, but by no means least, is living, right? It's why we are doing this. Anyway, so what's one of your best practices for making sure that you're building a life as well as building a business?
Well, again, being a person of faith, one of the things I believe in is legacy. The book of Proverbs says a good man leaves an inheritance for his children and grandchildren. So that is a big part behind the overall why. But my why is to bless other people. But I think about what am I going to leave for my children? And so that helps me to also, again, because you can be off balance too, because you're trying to do so much for them, and later on they're going to inherit this, but what about right now? They need the love, and be like, yeah, he left me all this stuff, but he didn't give me the love when he was alive. So I love entrepreneurship again for the fact that it helps me to see my family every day, except when I'm traveling. And I'm not talking about you see them in the morning when you wake up and in the evening when you come home. No, this is my home office.
Right.
Most of my videos, every time you see me on Facebook, generally you might see me, here. So that is the thing that keeps me tethered. My wife, my son, well, hopefully our children, right? But for now, my son. And so they are the big reasons for me of wanting to make a difference. So I just thank God for the opportunity that people allow me to help them to get results in their life, bring their product and creations to life, and they remunerate me for it, so I can bless my family, and I can go and help people in different countries and even here who are underserved. And so I'm grateful for that. And so that's what I think keeps me tethered.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what I hear in that, Chance, is again, it's priorities, focus, and making the right choices then, that by keeping that focus, that you want to have more of a balance, that then influences how you manage those priorities. And by staying consciously focused on that, and I talk about it, making sure that you're in alignment with your faith, beliefs, and values, because whatever is your essence should really be used to guide all the decisions that you make, rather than just kind of floating around and drifting from spot to spot. But when you have those things that act as your true north, then that guides your decisions so that you're more consciously making those choices. So I really admire that about you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, so this has been a great conversation. I could go on for hours,
yes,
but
I love it. I like how you do it.
Thank you. People will be happy to hear that we're not going to go on for hours. So why don't you take a minute or two and talk specifically about what you do, Chance? You've alluded to the fact that you help people get their products made, their books created. So can you share what exactly it is you do, who you work with, and where people can go to learn more about you?
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. I pretty much help entrepreneurs, professionals, small business owners to be able to leverage their education, expertise, and experiences. I call that monetizing your skills, which is what this is all about. In other words, that if you can be able to create extra income based on your skill sets, your knowledge, and experiences, then you can be able to do greater good. Sustain your business, your ministry for those who are faith-based, and support causes you like, whether it's nonprofit or charities or your church or whatever it may be. So that's the big why. So we help you to bring these products to life, and now we are able to even add now the marketing component, because again, that's where some people are failing down. So, but if it definitely is product creation, whether it's physical or digital product, we'll be able to help you bring that to life. So you can go to strategicsecrets.com, strategicsecrets.com. That's my main website, and you can get all the information there.
Outstanding. And of course, we'll have links right there in the show notes for you, as well as all the places that you can connect with Chance online, social media. He's got a big Facebook presence as well. So again, Chance, thanks so much for spending time with me. I really appreciate you sharing all this great information.
Thank you. Blessings to you.
All right, I hope you found that helpful. It's no wonder that Chance is a pastor. I think listening to him is inspiring and certainly motivating. If you like this episode, please share it with your connections. Please leave a great review for it on the platform where you consumed it, and be sure to subscribe either on that specific platform like iTunes, iHeartRadio, the Google Play Store, or you can subscribe to the video version on my YouTube channel. But when you subscribe on my website at winnieanderson.com/fans, you'll get episodes emailed right to you each week, along with the corresponding worksheet for that episode. In addition to the episodes, you'll get information, tips, and resources to help you come out of hiding, get your message out in a more powerful way, and achieve your business goals so you can profit from your expertise. All right, your cocktail exercise, otherwise known as a reflection exercise. No alcohol needs to be involved. Don't drink and drive. Don't overindulge. All right, so that reflection exercise, it's really to think about the actions that you take to move towards the goals you want and to fulfill your intentions. Think about something in your life that you've been driven to achieve or to master. Maybe you have a hobby that brings you joy, so you invest a lot of time in it. What about the elements of work, of reaching your goals and creating the impact and income you dream of? Are you taking the consistent actions that you need? Remember, Jack Canfield says the number one success principle is accepting full responsibility for your thoughts, beliefs, and actions. Chance isn't the only person who says success is predictable. So does Wallace Wattles, who wrote The Science of Getting Rich, and Napoleon Hill, who wrote Think and Grow Rich, and Outwitting the Devil. The issue is to maintain focus and forward movement. All right, so your action step, or steps as of course the case may be. I want you to examine your schedule and really tune into what you're doing and the actions you're taking. Are you achieving what you want? If not, then analyze what you're doing and why aren't you achieving the success you want? Are you taking consistent action? Or maybe you're just avoiding things. And if you're not taking action at all, you're not taking consistent action on the tactics necessary to move your business forward, what are you going to do to change things? Remember, you want to take responsibility for every thought you think, every action you take, every result you create. Consistent action means there's a pattern to what you're doing, that you do something more than once. Look at your calendar and ask yourself if you're truly taking consistent action on those things that will get you the success and the successful outcomes that you want. As Chance said, without consistent action, you wind up with failure. Be sure to visit winnieanderson.com/success strategies to get the show notes, links, and resources for this episode, including the worksheet to help you complete the reflection exercise and action step. Remember, if you're an introverted solo professional or someone with introverted leanings, you're ready to get support to reach your business goals as part of a community of like-minded and like-personality professionals, then head over to winnieanderson.com/join the group and join my Facebook group for introverted, mission-driven entrepreneurs. I share tips and strategies to help you choose faith over fear and take consistent action to achieve your goals. Thanks for listening. And remember, you deserve all the success you dream of.